Deonandan joining us. Raywat, in the last 4 days, 464 COVID cases in Manitoba. Again, pretty consistent what we're seeing across the board in Manitoba. When you compare Manitoba to certainly Saskatchewan and Alberta, we're not out of the fourth wave, but it appears that we're doing okay 2 weeks past Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I guess people were being responsible, and B, we had enough vaccination to prevent some widespread chaos. So that's good news. Across the country, things seem to be trending in a good direction. The exception being BC, which seems to be stultified and holding and plateauing at a certain point, but not declining. Even the problematic and the suffering provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta, the cases have come down dramatically. So I think there's good news on the horizon.
And when you look at our numbers, though, we're not out of the woods yet, as Dr. Rusin says. You know, we're starting to see the impact of Thanksgiving, but hopefully not as bad as we believe it might be, but bad in some areas like southern Manitoba where the vaccination rates are a lot lower.
Oh, yeah, it continues to be all about vaccination. So those places with more vaccination see much fewer cases and much less use of the healthcare system. This is not surprising anymore. It's not extraordinary PhD level science anymore. It's basic understanding that vaccination means less disease. So those places with fewer instances of vaccine uptake are going to see more cases. I don't know how much more plainly to say this. We have to keep on pushing for more vaccine uptake.
So I guess, how do we do that? I mean, we've been at that point now for how long? I can't recall, but we're in the high 80% for first doses, 83% for those eligible, fully vaccinated in Manitoba. I guess I just don't know how we get to that next level.
I think we have to use more education. I know that's a flip answer, but that's what it comes down to. I mean, who are the people who aren't vaccinated, and why aren't they vaccinated? There are a few reasons. And I have in front of me actually an infographic one of my students prepared for the common arguments for why people aren't vaccinated. And they tend to be things like they're afraid of the toxicity of vaccines, they're afraid of the vulnerability of their immune systems, or they feel that their immune systems are bulletproof against all diseases, or they're afraid of the authoritarian overstep of government. Whatever it might be, we have to address each of these concerns in turn and take them seriously. We have not really done this at a strategic national or even provincial level from authoritative sources yet. Usually we get responses via media, via social media, and so forth, but there isn't a consistent platform to address people's concerns. And I don't think we've invested enough resources yet in doing so. Until we do so, we have not pulled out all the plugs in my mind.
When you look at the numbers, and I know, as Richard pointed out, today is, 2 weeks post Thanksgiving. If we've learned one thing from the pandemic when it comes to Manitoba, is we appear to be lagging behind every other jurisdiction in having these difficult waves. Is there anything in the data that is pointing towards that happening, or can we breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief?
I don't think you can breathe a sigh of relief, but you're not guaranteed to have another wave. Not at all. Because the solution, again, is in front of you. More vaccination. I think we've successfully decoupled the cases from hospitalizations. And by that I mean, it used to be almost a law of physics, that 2 weeks after cases, you'll see a similar rise in hospitalizations. That's not the case anymore because of vaccination again. So it's unclear what will happen to you the next couple of weeks. But by no means is it guaranteed that you're going to have an upturn in cases. And I sound like a broken record, I'm sorry, but the secret is vaccination. And the more vaccination that occurs, the less likely bad things are going to happen for you.
Well, and as far as vaccinations are concerned, the children's one in the pipeline now, quickly going to be approved, we reckon, in the United States and then in Canada. So sometime in November, children should be able to get the shot.
Yeah, that's huge. Now, how many will get it? That's unclear. I think a majority will. I think some surveys suggest that 75% of parents in general are eager to get their kids vaccinated. That's going to be significant to move the numbers substantially. We need probably over 90% of the population to be immune before we can have the herd immunity conversation, or at least driving this disease to a low level of endemicity. And we get there when the kids start getting vaccinated. So that's going to start really soon. So good things are going to happen for the population in the next couple of months.
How does the flu factor in all this?
Well, the flu can create chaos and overuse of the healthcare system. If people aren't immune against the flu, they have a good chance of getting the flu, and a certain proportion will get seriously ill from the flu and eat up hospital space. We really can't afford that right now. In addition, having a parallel set of symptoms will cause confusion in the data stream, much like it did last year. And there's every reason to expect this to be a worse flu season than last year. So I encourage people to get the flu vaccine, and if you don't, take precautions against getting the flu.
Raywat Deonandan is with us, University of Ottawa epidemiologist and his four-legged friend. I'm wondering, when we are looking at some of the vaccination rates and moving forward with managing the pandemic, and that's what we're going to have to do going forward, if we can expect that governments will have to continue with the mandates, or will we see a day where some of these will be able to be lifted? Because I understand that the reason why we have to see vaccination rates so high is because of the number of variants that have emerged as a result of people not getting vaccinated in the first place.
Yeah, the variants continue to be a concern. It's the one thing that we really can't predict well, and that could throw a wrench in our plans, absolutely. But will the mandates expire? Absolutely, they will expire. And this is a message I think people need to hear more, is that these restrictions are not permanent. They're quite temporary. Vaccine passports are temporary. They won't last years, they'll last months. And having mandates in your workplace and so forth for having the COVID vaccine probably will last months as well. I think for schools, we're going to see the mandate probably permanent. COVID vaccination will probably be added to the other 9 or 10 mandatory vaccines for attending schools and the military and so forth. But the variants continue to be a concern, but really let the experts worry about that. For the most part, it seems that our vaccines work well against all the variants. We have not seen one that truly challenges vaccine efficacy to an extreme extent yet. So I'm not overly concerned, but always keep my eye out for it.
Well, we've heard of, and of course, Delta Plus, but, none of the other variants that we heard of weeks ago seem to have been out there now in a predominant way, Raywat.
Have we gone past D?
Yeah, and the reason they haven't come to the forefront is that Delta has kept them at bay. Right? Delta has infected so many people that there isn't space for these new variants to find traction yet. And maybe there won't be. Right? So again, there's every reason to expect our vaccines to work really well. We characterize variants in 3 categories: variants of interest, variants of concern, and variants of high consequence, based upon their ability to challenge our ability to detect, treat, and prevent. And there have been no variants of high consequence yet. They've all been variants of interest or concern. That's good. It means that our vaccines continue to work at very high effectiveness against all variants.
So we've had you on about twice, sometimes 3 times a week since the beginning of this pandemic, March, April of 2020. Raywat, do you see the end at the light of the tunnel where you can finally say that, we only contact you every once in a while and perhaps on your birthday?
Yeah, I do see the end coming sometime next year. Absolutely. Locally in Canada. Now, the pandemic is going to rage on around the world for some time, because we're slow at getting vaccination to the rest of the world. But we are approaching the point where in many parts of Canada, we can probably consider this disease to be somewhat endemic and not epidemic level. We're not there yet, not at all. But sometime next year, I think it's going to happen.
Raywat
I look
Deonandan.
forward to the day when we're just calling you for vegan Instapot recipes.
Raywat Deonandan joining us live from the University of Ottawa at 4:46 on 680 CJOB. Maybe we could do a cooking with chickpea segment.
He posts amazing looking food when
he
isn't talking about COVID-19.
I know. Stay with us. Also ahead.